I met a Gypsy.
I wanted to talk about electric bikes. It's another topic where I think you guys have a bit more room and leniency, and I guess maybe like less manufacturer pressure. But what's your general thoughts on the whole e-bike thing? 8th team, Stark, is that the one you alluded to? Maybe.
Oh, I've got a conversation with Anton at the moment.
Great guy.
Really great guy. And actually, when I say conversation with Anton, I've got a conversation with Anton because he's a great guy. Love what they're doing. Clearly, a form of electric dirt bikes is going to have a huge, huge part of the future of participation in dirt bikes.
Well, and it's got to be a selling point for you in certain markets too, right? Like that has to come into play from
Government funding.
Government funding.
China. If we wanted to race in China, we'd have to have that. Where's my head? So there's two parts to where my head's at, right? If I look at it absolutely exclusively through the lens of creating a story to promote, clearly selling the story of being the only major motorsport in the world that can see electric take on combustion is a story that broadcasters, media rights holders, ourselves would love to tell, would absolutely love to tell. I don't think it's quite as simple as that because you'd have 7 teams on one and one on another, and you've got to be a bit creative in how you do it. But I think that's a story that would be great to tell. The question is, when is that story to be told? So that where we are today, we've got I wouldn't say that I'm sitting on great manufacturer strength with our combustion manufacturers. And do they care enough to not want to race against Stark out of fear of losing? And what does that look like? What's the balance of that? And then on top of that, what's the regulations to make it appropriate? I'm not necessarily sure I'm versed enough in Supercross to be the person that comes up with those regulations.
Yeah.
But luckily the FIM are, and it's already happening in Super Enduro, and there are now precedents in Supercross, Arena Cross. Obviously, MXGP is going to have its own E-Class. Things are all developing in the appropriate way to do so. We've got to pick the right time and the appropriate way to ensure that our entire ecosystem can support that. I can't, nor would I want to, ram it through the lens of me and potentially Stark without everybody else going, you know what, the sport is going to be better because the storylines that we're going to be able to tell means that we're going to be able to create more eyeballs, so we all see this as a positive thing. And then in which case, then I think there's a great opportunity. There's still things like sound and all of the questions that I have as a fan which go, well, what does that mean? What does that mean? We have to answer all of those questions. What we can't do is just do it. But I will always have that conversation. I think it's at the heart of innovation, isn't it? If we're saying we're going to be innovative, one of those things is, well, why is electric not racing with you then?
Yeah.
So the answer to the question is that that's a conversation that will always be had and continue to be had, and finding the right time to do so. And could that be in 2025? Who knows? Could that be in 26? Who knows? But I can tell you that I really enjoy getting to know Anton, and I think there's a really awesome opportunity in the future that's really unique to this sport because of the way electric bikes are going to play their part.
Yeah. One thing as well to maybe touch on is just like how dependent on manufacturers do you want to be? Because right now, I would say like the AM, if you really zoom out and you look at Feld, like it's a pretty crazy model. Like they put on the race. Yeah. They don't share revenue with anyone. And this isn't a dig.
They create a marketing platform.
Yeah. So this isn't like a negative. No, this is just like purely, this is what it is, right? So you have a series that is like the promoter and the marketing platform, and it's like, hey, come and race our series. They don't necessarily pay the people to participate. Like they don't pay, as to put it like Jeffrey Hurling said, they don't pay the clowns in the circus.
Sure.
But they have this huge manufacturer support because manufacturers want to sell dirt bikes and they need to go racing. So they take care of paying the clowns in the show. But in turn, the manufacturers have a really big say on how the racing happens because they're essentially racing amongst themselves. Like, really, Feld doesn't have to give a fuck. So they're just like, you guys figure it out. So then there's like these manufacturers that have a massive say in how the sport itself is run, which then stops Feld from being able to like leverage the sport even further, change. Sure. Like it kind of just has to stay
flatlines
how it is. So then I think that's why you've just seen this thing stay the same over a lot of years. Granted, SMX, like, so
sure.
I'm going back,
back
to that, right? But it's like there's all these parties that have a lot of say, and now it seems like there's stalemates because of how much influence and leverage each party has, to where it's like, unless somebody came in, like let's say a Dana White, and was like, I'm buying the sport for $1 billion.
Saudi Arabia.
$750 million, whatever. Because it's this live property, and all right, we're going to pay the riders individually. We don't need the manufacturers.
Yeah, essentially contract everything.
You know what I mean? So there's like, it's just in such a solid state because all of these parties have these different things that they kind of have this huge amount of influence over. But you guys kind of can avoid that relationship, I'm assuming, if you're careful.
Yeah, I think so.
But you need them now, but you don't need them all the way. I don't know.
I think, well, let's look at the now. I think it's probably the most important bit is recognizing that this sport requires strong manufacturers to be able to sell bikes around the world. And both I and other domestic series have the responsibility to build the ecosystem and the theatres to give them the opportunity to sell those bikes via going racing and spending their marketing dollars appropriately. I think once we've created that ecosystem, I think then we've really got to question what is the absolute ideal model of private race teams, manufacturer race teams, etc. Whilst, you know, the manufacturers sit there with the leverage because clearly they've got the riders contracted to them at this point in time.
So that's where the leverage is realistically with the
That's where that sits. But if we can build an ecosystem that gets the manufacturer recognize upside for them, and recognize that upside is more valuable if they release riders to do so, and it might be that there is this sort of hybrid model of what teams look like on the other side, because what manufacturers don't want to have to do is go racing with their factory teams more, which costs them more money. What can they do is there a hybrid model where the private team sits in the front of it, and that is supported well by the manufacturer, which actually flatlines their dollar spend for return on investment around the world. First of all, got to build the ecosystem. Manufacturers don't want to go and race. They don't want to race 10 more weekends with their factory teams directly right now. That also being said, maybe there's a model where if you take in all of the areas that their factory teams are racing right now, in 3 years' time, when you take a big step back and they go, right, let's see which ones give us the biggest return on investment. Well, World Supercross might, and as might all of the American stuff, and then they turn around and go, but that one doesn't. So what does it? I do think there is a changing of the guard or some tectonic plates moving on where is marketing dollars spent. And I think the experiences that KTM have gone through have shown us that nothing is sacrosanct. And that we as a promoter opportunity have got to give hybrid opportunity and models for manufacturers to come and join, not just at the extra cost of racing their factory team more. So all of my engagements with manufacturers are twofold. How do I build an ecosystem where they're able to sell more bikes? How do I not cost them more money to come and support my series? If I can do both of those, there is no CEO, take the racing teams out of it, there is no CEO of a manufacturer in the world that goes, don't do that.
Yeah.
It's just not, because they're businesses, right?
Yeah.
Now, the guy who runs the team may be like, but I don't want to do World Supercross. But ultimately, that will be done by the bottom line on an Excel spreadsheet for the manufacturer. And if I can do those two things, that will unlock.
If you enjoyed this content, please like and subscribe. And to listen to the full 3-hour podcast, search Gypsy Tales in your favorite podcast platform or click the link in the description below. Gypsy Gang.